I think there's a world where developers and designers use one single tool. So we've seen tools like Cursor or Lovable where you have prompting engines and then developer stack within that IDE. I think there's a world where those tools extend to allow the designers to play with the code. So we're contributing to the design system directly in the code. We have some kind of sandbox where we're able to kind of prototype using like dev-ready code. So we're going to get it to maybe 50% ready, and then it's about the developer.
We are kind of live now. This is what I always wanted to say. We are live.
And we're officially live.
We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment. Lately I've been feeling a bit of let's call it AI bloat. Not sure if you have the same thing. It feels like there are so many AI models out there and tools for everything that it's lots of subscriptions and different apps, and they take over my whole taskbar, the dock on the Mac. People talk about the new release of a model like, Gemini 2.5. You should leave Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. And I'm starting to lose track a little bit. I just want one app, one AI app that does it all, to be honest. Is that relatable in any way, or is it just me?
Often I have some buddies of mine suggesting the newest tool as I'm getting used to the AI tool that I'm currently using. So it's hard for me to jump to one to the other. And I feel like the jump is, well, it could be huge, but I feel like it's a minute change to my workflow. So I can't validate that and swap over and then have to learn a new tool and have to start all over again. It's hard to keep up sometimes. I'm with you.
Yeah. So I'm still using the same one, still in Claude for most of the things. But I noticed that I've been adding a few more, Whisper Flow, for example, to, voice to text, that kind of thing. And then you also have the Perplexity for searching and the note taker during meetings. And, it's getting it's going to be quite a list already.
I find that I'm getting dumber. I don't know if that's what's happening, but I've automated a lot of my processes that I feel like without it, I'm a bit stuck. Or maybe it's just I'm reverting back to the speed I used to be at. Maybe that's the case. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you're saying that it used to be better back in the day?
I feel like I've offloaded a lot of responsibilities. I've sped up my workflow, so I get a lot more done. But I may be shackled to these tools because that's just the way we're going.
Yeah, imagine the internet being down at some moment.
I love that. I love when it's down. Like, I can't work. I can't look at I have my phone, but at least I'm not on I can go outside, go for a walk. It gives me an excuse to break the chain.
Maybe our AI overlords have to turn off the internet on purpose, like once a week, just for everyone to, stand up, go outside and have a little break.
I'd vote for that.
Yeah. It's because that's something we mentioned in our remote working episode, right? At home, there's no one forcing you to go for a walk or take a lunch break. You can continue the whole day and then feel exhausted and be unhealthy at the end of the day.
And that's what today is. It's raining today, so there's no way I can go outside and get wet, but I'm not going to. A rainy day, I have to find something indoors to keep my blood moving.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we're talking about tools today, design tools, AI tools. So the main tool, Figma, today for almost everyone. And the previous episode we had this statement. Figma will be the main tool for designers in, I think we said 2 years, something like that. Not super short term, but in quite a while. And I think you said no to that statement, and I said yes.
Yes, I don't think it's like Figma the way it is today. I don't think it's going to last. Yeah.
And why is that?
We're, I just think we're just AI is moving very fast. Just to harp on the AI trend, and
Mm.
we're having new tools. And I found myself incorporating AI tools more into my process. Um, and what Figma is, it's like the handoff process. So it's like the design engineering handoff process. That's what Figma's for. I've started incorporating, doing a lot of vibe coding, which is vibe coding my solutions first, and then translating it to Figma or FigJam one.
Mm.
Um, I think it's more relevant. It's probably more relevant if you're dealing with data heavy products. So there's inputs that output certain data and metrics, and it's hard to communicate that through a design or a mock-up, because it has to be realistic. The output is based on the input, and then you can't. It's hard for clients or even internal stakeholders to imagine how it's going to look like if you're just like, oh, this is how it's going to look, and it should communicate this. But if you actually get like a quick prototype working, um, you, you validate number one that it works based on the data that you have, and that it eases the development team because you validated that it actually works. And that push, that little 10% push is, we have a design system, like we just, and get ready to go.
Right. So, makes me think about like that 2 year step that we're talking about. You're doing more steps in front of Figma, or before Figma, is a better way of putting it. More vibe coding. Do you think the balance will shift even more? Like currently for you, I guess it's, if you look at tools only, it's mostly Figma with something a little bit before. Like, will that flip? So it's mostly the thing before and then just a little bit Figma in the end, or can
Yeah,
it go that far?
I think it's 50-50 right now, at least with my current process. I think it's going to become less and less. What I think might happen, this is my thinking. I think there's a world in, or using our 2 year benchmark here. I think there's a world where, developers and designers use one single tool. So we've seen tools like Cursor or Lovable where, or I guess it's more relevant for Cursor, where you have prompting engines and then developer stack within that IDE. I think there's a world where those tools extend to allow designers to play with the code. So we're contributing to the design system directly in the code. We have some kind of sandbox where we're able to kind of prototype using like dev ready code. So we're going to get it to maybe 50% ready. And then it's about the developer pushing it the rest. We've validated, we've tested we're going to skip the wireframing step. We're going to skip the design step. We're actually going to have a workable prototype that we can show our clients, quickly validate, hand it over to engineering, put their magic into it and launch super quick. I think that's where we're going.
And that's one of the things I've been thinking about as well. The one tool to rule it all. It could be Figma. It's just a matter, I think, of will the design tool swallow up the developer part, or the other way around? Will the developer app, Cursor, VS Code, or whatever, swallow up the design part? I think that feels like a big battle that's coming up, like the battle for market share that way. At the same time, I also think that I think there are quite a few designers who have nothing to do with code at all. And for them, perhaps there's no reason to make a switch or leave Figma, because Figma is for design only. Figma is perfectly fine.
And that's fine too. I just think the output, like if you think of the goal, like the goal is to create a website, a marketing website for a client, um, or to create a product, the output is just production ready. Whatever that production ready code is, that's what the end result is. How we get there is up to us. So whatever tools or tech stack we want to use, if that's the outcome, and seems like specifically in our industry, I think things move fast and things are moving even faster. I think what everyone values at the end of the day, and especially for business owners, is time. So how can I get this thing done quick and now? I think there's also a balance probably that you probably more both designers. So we believe in the craft and that's what we've practiced doing for the last decade or so.
Yes, that's true.
So if you just build something in code, we've seen it. If it's a engineering run company with no design input, we see what the output looks like. It looks like a mess that we have to that later the company hires and say, oh, our UX is is horrible. We need a designer to fix it. I think there's an opportunity for designers to extend their tool set and leverage whatever tools are necessary to get to that final output.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. But also at the same time, you mentioned design craft. Things we're proud of, things we're very skilled at. It's also a matter of resisting, and also the question like, should you resist? Like, is it worth it? Like, do you want to be the person to be like, no, it's all about design and craft and color theory and gestalt and all these things, with the risk of being out of a job in a year or two, because you probably can't stop it. Like if the market shifts and you're an individual battling that shift, you're probably going to lose. At the same time, I also want to mention, and this is probably a counter to my own point, is if I look at, for example, websites I'm building for myself, like I have, my portfolio website in 2 languages in 2 different places. I'm building those 2 websites directly in code. I'm not using Figma because I don't have to present the design to someone. I can design, I can code, so I'm just building it and then looking at it. I'm like, well, this needs a little bit of tweaking. What if I increase the spacing here and then border radius and all the coloring? And then, oh, this is a bit crowded. Maybe I can increase white space. I do not go to Figma and then to code. Like, I feel that's a waste of my time. But that requires a bit of learning. Like 6 months ago or a year ago, I would go to Figma first because I wasn't fast enough in code. It would be an annoyance to try and make it work. And I wasn't confident that the code I put in or had the AI put in, that it was going to look the way I had in mind. And then I would be debugging more than I would be looking at, like, does this look the way I want it to look and does it work the way I want it to work? But now today, I feel confident that the things I put in into the code will look the way that I want it to. So I'm not going to Figma first. But that's different for client work. For client work, especially if the customer or the company I'm working with, if they are very like tech savvy, very smart about it, they have their way of working. They are way better at coding than I am. So I'm not just going to walk through the door and start vibe coding or not vibe coding my way through the code base. They usually want to see a mock-up first, and they want to give like the go ahead, like, yes, this is fine, this works well. What does mobile look like? And what does this edge case look like? And only then I can go into the code. So in that way, Figma would be like a communicator, like a bridge builder between the things we have in mind and versus the developer, because they want to see something. They want to agree with the thing you're going to build. So that's a perfect use case for Figma, I think.
And I'll concede to that fact. And in addition to that, there's a use case for even when we use before you even start building like the layout or building the site. It all starts with brand. So there's branding exercises and conversations with clients, and there's different directions that you want to test out. So I concede to the fact that you'd have to mock up maybe potentially 3 different options, 3 different looks of how this product might look. And to do that in code 3 times is a huge lift for something that you'll have to throw away. So I think I'll concede to that fact.
Yeah, and then you also have in a design tool, Figma or whatever other design tool, you can just put them next to each other on a page, and presenting 3 mockups in code. You would need some sort of UI around it, or treat different URLs and a long email, and that's a bit annoying. Where a design tool can be just one link, which is more practical, I think. But so it really depends on the type of design work you do. If I look at the design influencers, some of the big names, like on Twitter, the one with, let's say, 100,000 followers and more. And then sometimes they share, they post something like, hey, I want to feature you. If you're an upcoming designer, share your most recent work. And then all the people replying, and then the ones getting a reply back from the influencer, they all have a very particular style of design, which it's all hero sections and landing pages that they will build probably in Framer or Webflow or one of the new AI tools, which makes me think that in that subset of the design world, they don't really need Figma. Like Figma does not have a mode there. Like they do not have something that, the mode theory, they don't have anything that guards them from attacks. Like there's nothing super special about Figma, because you could directly build it in Lovable or Bolt or a Framer. So I think Figma is less safe there in that part of the design world.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there's probably a line to where it's necessary and one that it isn't. If I'm thinking, maybe I'm coming from the point of view, if you're starting a new business, you're a startup or you just got a seed round, and you want to test out this product idea or the solution. I don't think initially it needs to look great, but you still need that design partner to get it to a decent state initially, because you're dealing with budget, you're dealing with these constraints. So I think there's a world where you go directly to code and make sure that the UX is okay, so that you can test on more your first customers and then improve over time. I think just quicker to market to validate your ideas. That's where our strengths is. And back to my point of like engineering startups, without designers, I think there's a world where we contribute to the same one and we get to a decently looking one quick. It doesn't need to be perfect, like we generate.
Well, yeah. In that case, the startup case, the new business case, surviving is more important than design. That's something, I forgot his name. Not sure who said it, but they just said like you have to just put on a Stripe payment link or a purchase button on a very ugly website just to see if your product is, if there's something there. And that can be done very quickly using any tool. You don't need Figma for that. It doesn't need the perfect gradient or typography. You it can just be a system font and a button, just to see, to measure, marketing or sorry, market interest. Yeah. So I agree there. Like there's no Figma there, but at the same time, I don't think those people are currently using Figma. So them continuing to not use it or use something else does not, I think, bring down the Figma dominance it currently has.
But I think there's a world, like back to my point, where we have this one tool that rules them all, one tool that rules them all. Like, so if you're starting with this AI tool that's this ID that's developer focused, but it has the feature that allows a designer to come in and fix and maneuver some stuff, that could be useful. So we have this possibility, and we can quickly get them to onboard, understand the code, and jump in, make it look great, set up the proper flows, make sure that the UX would concede on the other side. I don't know if you found it before, when to your point about in the situation where you're having your website and you don't need to go back and forth between Figma and then the code. You understand the constraints a bit more. So you get into a mode of, okay, I'm working with these constraints. I can only build it this way. And I know if I design it this way, I'll get to the end, to the finish line faster. And there's less exploration of like out of the box thinking. How can I design it a bit better without knowing these constraints? I found that also when I was hybrid developer designer, like I would design things just to make sure I can launch them quicker versus add a bit of magic to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the trade-off you see, or well, I've seen in my entire career, the done versus perfect, or perfect versus shipped. I think that's a bigger one. I've like in my corporate days, they being product managers, product owners, stakeholders in general, they would abuse the backlog word and the sprint. Agile Scrum sprint way of working. They're like, well, this sprint we're going to do the MVP, and then in theory, you would expect to come back and then improve and build on top of it in the next sprint. But then they would only do like one sprint per thing and then move to the next one. And then you would have a long list of things that barely work and are just finished, just about good enough, which is a problem. But if that's the case, like if it's okay to be good enough, which I feel like that was the goal in my corporate days. Even in today's world of design plus dev tools, you don't really need Figma, which is very interesting, I think. But at the same time, like maybe it's good to know that even though I think Figma is still going to be like the main design tool of choice, like in the future, I'm not attached to Figma. I think that's important to know. I'm not saying yes, it is the main tool because I'm like a super fan. I'm not going to config this year. I've never been. I don't care what tool we use. Just going to use the best one or the most relevant one. But I also think that especially larger companies, they are very slow to change. Figma was the main player for years already, and I would still have clients that would prefer Adobe XD and Sketch. Like they were not allowed for legal reasons from certain departments to switch to Figma. Things go very slowly over there. So that will delay the change that's coming, the AI change for Figma, I think.
Yeah, that's like anything. I remember when I was hesitant to switch when I was designing websites in Photoshop, even though that was a headache because I don't know,
It was, yeah.
I wasn't using a Mac at the time. I was a PC user, and Photoshop would crash 7 times a day, and you would hope that you'd you'd have that little itch in you to hit save every 10 minutes, so you didn't lose all your progress. I've been there when I've done my 4-hour block of design and then boop, system crash. And switching from Photoshop to Sketch was a rough one. But then I switched, and then I had to switch from Sketch to Figma again. So I think there's a new thing coming, but maybe it's to your point. Maybe Figma evolves beyond like what it is today and allows us to do what we need to do, or on the contrary, maybe the engineering tools evolve backwards as well.
Yeah, that's some like I know we're recording this before config and it's going to be released after config, but last week or the week before, there were leaks or rumors, I'm not sure, or screenshots at least, of Figma announcing a website builder as part of Figma. So then you would have Figma, FigJam slides, and then website builder, which would make them a Webflow / Framer competitor. And then when executed right, if it works. I've never used Figma slides before because most people make their slides somewhere else, so there's no reason to switch. But with people already in Figma and them adding a website builder on top of it, that would make their position stronger because they already have the people. People don't have to switch. Like you say, switching is quite a pain. It slows you down for a while until you're proficient with a new tool. So I think they have a few, pivotal moments coming up. Like if their
It's
website
interesting.
builder, if their website builder is going to be a success, then I would stick to my yes answer. But if they do not do a good job, like they've been doing, recently with quite a few things, um, then I might join your camp of the no, Figma is not going to be the main tool opinion. So
Interesting move. I didn't hear
yeah,
about that. I'm curious how that workflow would look like. Because I've used slides a couple times, and you can pull whatever Figma file components you have directly into slides. You have less control over like typography and layout. So you fumble there for a bit. You have to then design um, in a specific way to get it to do the website builder. But I guess it's the same flow that you would go from
yeah,
Figma to Webflow. I guess with making sure that you're kind of using, I don't know what's the term, when you make it make sure that your designs are responsive, so it translates well. But could be a game changer.
could
But
be. Yeah.
that seems like a 5-year move.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that's
Like,
something you're already seeing. Like when the leak came out, you already have the social media influencers having their catchy titles of posts coming up, like "This is a game changer" and blah blah blah. The whole thing. But the more realistic view of it would probably be that it's going to be like an alpha or a beta release. Missing a lot of features in the beginning. Like a new release of a new app is not going to be as feature rich as a competitor who's been at it for years.
like
And
Framer.
if yeah, I don't know how long Framer has been around. It feels like they are making big moves recently. More and more people talking about it. But I wanted to say Webflow, but I don't know how long Webflow has existed. Probably for 4 years. But Framer and Webflow will not be sitting still. Like they are still developing their tools. Um,
Yeah, and Framer I feel like is in the best position to make the strongest move because it's the best merging of like Figma and like a Webflow, where you can design in browser, relatively speaking, and then you've developed a website.
yeah.
Um, they haven't been out as long as Webflow, but they have that designer's edge. That like that
Yes.
transition from Figma to Framer is pretty seamless.
Mm.
So they probably have the biggest edge, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're let's say you're an agency or you're a freelancer and all you do is marketing websites, landing pages and that kind of stuff. I think that's the most like if let me take one step back. Like that's one part of a design world, websites. Um, and you mentioned like the people trying to build something and they want to see if there's product market fit and have a first version out there. Those people aren't really designers. I think that could be like your uncle or your neighbor. They can be like, well, let's try something, let's build something. But if you really look at designers who currently use Figma, I think landing pages and marketing websites like Figma is most likely to lose those people if they aren't gone already with Framer.
Yeah.
I follow someone on Twitter. I can't recall his name on the spot, but like most of his content I see is about if you still design in Figma and not a website and not directly in Framer, you're losing out. It's 2025, man, silly. That kind of that kind of content. He's probably right for marketing websites, but let me give you one quick example. So I work together with a software as a service company, and they have a large code base in Laravel Blade, and they use Bootstrap on top of it. It's a very complex code base. Even though I have been coding for years and I'm quite good at Bootstrap and Tailwind and building websites and stuff, it really takes me a while to figure out how that whole project is set up. It has a database, it has the terminal, it has so many different components. It's all dynamic, it's all connected. Um, designing directly in the development tool for that type of long existing project with thousands of lines of code. Like I feel like AI or any type of new AI power tool, it's quite a while away for it to be easy to work directly within that code. I think that really needs like the in-between design tool step. Can be Figma, can be something else. I don't mind, but with today's market dominance, I would say that Figma would still have a place there. So that's really the UI/UX designer, like really deep into a software product, not just like the front end of marketing and branding.
That's true. Yeah, because I started testing out Cursor, and I tried to create a product through the prompting engine, and I got completely lost. And I feel as though if I knew how to code it better, I'd make more sense. But I feel like I was making a lot of unnecessary code, importing external libraries that were not needed, and I'd probably be running up the bill on our hosting on a host based on what I was prompting through. And it's like I could have just mocked something up and quickly built it in Tailwind, to your point.
Yeah.
But
Well, it does
maybe
help.
that's just something I have to learn.
Yeah. It does help. Like if you know a little bit of code already, you are much better to see and understand the output of the AI. And then if it starts to run in circles and hallucinate and do things you didn't ask for, then I think you're much more likely to untangle the spaghetti code it made. That's what I'm noticing, at least. Like for another project, I'm working on modals. Like they have modals in all places. Like sometimes it has a form inside of it. Sometimes it's just a confirmation or a warning. Like they have all different kind of modals. My work there is very much AI assisted. But not AI only. I do not copy paste the output. I ask the AI to analyze the code of the current page, explain it to me. Like, are there any like edge cases or special, smart little things I didn't see myself? And then based on that, I explain what I'm going to do. And then it's a bit 50-50. Some things I do because I know a quicker way. And then when I'm stuck or I have to do like a repetitive task within like a very large model, then I have the AI to do the thing, because mostly I'm getting too lazy to do it by hand. So their AI is and being outside of Figma is really helpful. I don't go into Figma. I think that's my main point there. But it also came up in my mind because we were talking about AI output and it getting stuck and that kind of thing. If I had no coding knowledge at all, I wouldn't be able to work on those models because I had no clue what I was looking at. It would just be explaining what I want, copy pasting, and then getting frustrated because it doesn't look the way I think I described it to the AI tool.
It does fail a lot. You have to learn how its limitations. Like I use ChatGPT for like creating POCs. But I'd have to be very careful. Because it takes the context from previous conversations and it puts in what it thinks you want. So you have to be very explicit.
Yes.
So I'll find myself getting to like 90% there, and I needed to add one quick thing, and then it deletes the majority of the code base. And so, for example, I go, okay, perfect, we're at where we need. Now we just need an additional input in the fourth column, and then what it does is it just outputs that fourth column and deletes the entire code base. And I go, no, please revert to the last. The last prompt, and it tries, but it doesn't get it properly. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And then whenever you think you are specific or specific enough, then you find out you are not, and you could have prevented this whole annoyance by just adding like one extra sentence. I wanted to have, I wanted to make a few changes to a radio button, and changing a radio button to be different from the default radio button in a browser is surprisingly challenging. Most components on a website, you can just go to the CSS and say like, well, I want it to have a red border and a drop shadow with these properties, but the radio button is different. Usually people put something on top of it and hide the original one. And so I mentioned like I want it to be this tall, this wide, and this color. So I thought, well, if I mention these three things, it's explicit that I only want to do these three things, and with the exact values and such. And it said to me like, well, okay. And then it made a whole change and added all kinds of hover states and different borders to the label next to the radio button and gaps I didn't ask for. But I could have probably prevented that from happening by just saying like, I want this width, this height, this color, period, and nothing else, period. And nothing. That's 3 words extra, which could have saved me yet another minute, because we're talking really about minutes now with how quick it is.
Yeah, I feel like you're talking to a super smart baby that can do so much stuff. But if you're not explicit and give it the right nudge, it can go off the rail.
Well, that's true. That makes me think about, and this is super off topic, but still relevant in a way. That when I talk to my daughter, when I tell her like we are going to the zoo tomorrow, all she hears is we are going to the zoo. Yeah, she doesn't hear the tomorrow, and then she doesn't want to sleep because I was stupid enough to mention it just before her bedtime. And then I feel like, man, this is not my first day here. I should have known this, and so you're completely right. That's how it works with the prompting as well. You have to be extremely specific, and even when you think you are specific, add a layer on top of that.
Actually, now it just reminds me. Not to go more off topic. Same thing with my son. We went to go to his barber. Okay, we're gonna need to book an appointment for Friday, and all he heard was getting my hair cut.
Yeah. So
no, we're
panic mode.
4 days. Panic mode. And so we're going. No, we just made the appointment. He gave his barber high five. We'll see you Wednesday. That's in 4 days, buddy. Our next 4 days. Are we going? Are we going? But I digress.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm very lucky to have a daughter. She's 2 years and 3 months now. We haven't set foot in a barbershop at all. Never. Because she can have longer hair. Boys can too, but for her, it's the discussion was a lot easier. Like, do I have to go there? No, not yet. And she's like, okay. Yeah. And hopefully, when she has to go for the first time, she's old enough to understand it well and not completely panic. So I'm hopeful for that. But anyway, with us getting more and more off topic, I think we should have a final verdict. For the Figma is the main design tool of choice. And let me be specific, because we're talking about prompting. And you're not a baby, and you're not an AI tool, but it's good for both of us to be specific. We have to answer the question one more time. Like, is Figma going to be the main design tool of choice? And it depends is not an allowed answer. All we can say is yes or no, because let's not bore our users. Listen to me. We should not bore our listeners by saying, well, it depends. That's a bit of a silly answer.
Here's my firm stance. I think based on what you said, Figma late to the game releasing their web development platform. I think they're a bit too far behind. I'm a firm believer that we're going to be evolving out of Figma the same way we've evolved out of Photoshop and all the other tools that we've been using. Designers are going more strategic and getting more technical, filling the gaps with AI. And I feel that there's new tools coming, and we're going to be adopting those new tools. And those new tools will look something like a developer IDE with a designer-friendly UI.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's very interesting to hear. It's fun to listen to you and this conversation where we started with a yes and a no, and now we have a very nuanced answer. It's not just a plain no or yes anymore. I'm trying, while doing this, I'm trying to find this the design survey from UX Tools that I think I have found, because maybe I'm not going to have our listeners wait for a minute until I find this thing. But the reason I'm looking for this is because I feel like Figma for design tools currently is like the like 90% plus of market share. Like almost everyone everywhere uses Figma. And it looks like that way. I found the UX Tools survey from a few years ago, where Figma, like you have the bar graph, and Figma is by far the biggest one, and then you have Sketch, and then Illustrator, and Azure, and it's a big majority. I'm going to change my answer from yes to one of the big players, but a way less market dominance compared to today. I think, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's so easy to build a new tool today with Lovable and V0 and like all these different things. I don't think there's going to be one major player and the little ones anymore. Like we've always had, like it was Photoshop, Sketch, Figma. Like there's not going to be a new Figma. There's not going to be the one with 90% market share. Like there's probably going to be like 4 or 5 with between 10 and 20% market share. Like I think Figma has its place, but I also think Framer and Webflow and even WordPress have their place. Plus, let's say the 1 or 2 AI design / development tools that will survive the battle. So then you have more than one tool. So Figma is probably going to be one of those 10 to 20, 25% market share tools, together with a few other ones. That's my long answer to the question. So you have you and me in this conversation, you've convinced me to go from a blind yes to a more educated, well, they're going to shrink.
Yeah, and I think you've convinced me on the others. There's still use case for Figma, but I think it depends on the use case. But I don't want to give
Yes.
that waffly answer.
Yeah, well, I think that's something we discussed already with the website versus existing code base and all these things. One thing, maybe a final disclaimer, is we don't know. Nobody knows. And if you read someone claiming they know how it's going to be in 5 years, they want to sell you something, or they don't know anything. If the OpenAI CEO says everything will be AI in the future, well, they say it because they want you to get a lot of OpenAI subscriptions. So always be aware of why is someone saying this, which is, I think, a rule for everything in life. Always be aware of why people say things. Yeah, I don't know, but these are our guesses, I think.
Yes, it is a guess at the end of the day. We don't know, but we have our belief, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah. And then in the next episode, we're going to say something else. And then in 5 years, we're going to erase the episode where we were wrong. And then we point back at the episode who's still, the one still live. And then we're like, see what we said there? We are right.
There you go. Just editing.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's true. Like you are our super smart editor. So I'm sure you can do a lot of things after the fact and make us sound super smart.
I'll just re-upload it with that slight change. I'll do some AI voiceover.
Yeah, AI Tyler. Talking of next episodes, what's on the menu for next time?
Yeah, I think the topic of, well, we just talked about how our tools might evolve, how we might use them. I believe, furthermore, our roles will evolve as well. I feel as though there's great collaboration between product and design. I just feel like the lines get blurry. And I feel like those roles will merge into one. So it's about, I feel like designers will have to learn a bit more project management, and product managers will have to learn a bit more design.
One of the things I will think about between this teaser and our next recording session is didn't designers have to do a bit more product management already? Are there still roles where you are like fully design only, nothing else? Because it's really making me think what you're saying now. Like, yeah, you can see me falling a bit silent already. So that's probably going to be a great episode. I'm going to be thinking about this for quite a few days, and then yeah, I'll have hopefully an educated opinion for our recording session.
We'll talk about it.
All right. Well, then I will see you there.